hold has begun.
Welcome everyone. My rector in the body call is app together. They sounded off.
And that was the exact same competition.
Whoa!
Ended up costing you.
All right, I'm in.
Hi, it's Tennere. Hi, it's Tennere here, and I'm now joined by autocorrect for this second game between Mega Empire and Insane Potential. If you remember from the last round, these are two very strong teams. Insane Potential are one of the first teams, I believe, that pulled out the Crystal Fortress. Otto, are you there to join me?
Yeah, hold on one second. I'm not sure if my mic is working. Give me 1 second here.
Not a problem. We do have everyone sitting and waiting. I will just get the admins back in. And I'm super excited for this match. It's the second game in the round of 16 that we're having here. This is the Finn region this time between Mega Empire, who are second seeded, and Insane Potential, who are in the sixth seed. Mega Empire's team is going to be made up of Artivos, Rubber Monkey, and Pork Bun, some of the more amusing names, I'd say. Whereas on the other side, you've got a more fandoms type side of things with the SKT Team 1 Faker. And here we will just be jumping into the draft now. Oh, wait, no, sorry. That was a blind pick. I'll be going again. Here we go. Like I said, I remember Insane Potential were one of the first teams to go with the Fortress pick. Right now, it is the first ban as Sky from Mega Empire, and Insane Potential seem to be going for either a Koshka or a Fortress ban this time. So it does leave Koshka open still for the picks, and that is the first thing that Mega Empire will be picking up. I don't know if Insane Potential would run a buff comp. They could go for the likes of a Ringo Adagio right now. They are going to be trying to secure their roam pick for the first round here, though.
All right, testing. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You're good to go, I think.
All right. Please let me know in the chat, guys, if my microphone's not working. Once again, I'm autocorrect. I'm glad to be here.
Yep, let us know if you can hear autocorrect or if it's just me talking to myself. So it's like hearing the one side of a phone conversation, which could be incredibly annoying for everyone. But welcome to here. This is Mega Empire versus Insane Potential.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So currently we've got three really strong characters right now in the meta now, four, I believe, and that's the Sky, Koshka, and Fortress. Of course, Fortress being a little bit broken, so I think it's very smart for them to go ahead and ban this. I would rather take a Koshka rather than Fortress right now.
Yeah, well, we did see in the last round, Hunter's Ace did deal with one of the Crystal Fortresses with a Koshka of their own, so she's definitely one of the strongest right now in comparison to Fortress. Definitely can deal with him, but her risk is that late game drop off.
Yeah, definitely. It looks like the teams are taking their time to pick. They really want to make sure they get a good draft. You know, a lot of people don't really understand the importance of the draft, but if for those of you guys who saw the VIPL last season, draft can make a major difference. I mean, you know, we saw Rome Taka not doing its thing. We saw that for Gangstars and lost them that match, and then we saw also INV losing a match because they went with that Kestrel jungle. And so, it's really important to make sure you've got those picks.
Yeah, that was the blind pick match, wasn't it? They tried to counter Shinka against
For
Kestrel
Gangstars,
with a
yeah.
Kestrel of their own.
No,
Oh, I was thinking of Gangstars, you're right.
that was Gangsters with the Rome Taka. They lost versus Arden, and then INV played Arden, in the finals, but then they lost to Kestrel Jungle. Wine playing the Kestrel Jungle.
Well, it looks like we do have two team comps set up right now. There isn't as much early aggression from Insane Potential as there is from Mega Empire. Mega Empire do have the Koshka double melee comp going right here. I would imagine that it should be a Black Feather going into the lane, but you never know. Against the Vox early, either of them are going to have a very easy time at the beginning, I'd imagine.
Yeah, and really, it's all about making sure that when you're playing that Black Feather, you've got the barrier on that B skill hit, and your timing that you're using that when Vox is trying to aggress on you, because basically that fortified health makes sure you take very little damage, especially in the early game.
Yeah, his is still actually a barrier right now. I don't think it got converted to fortified health, did it? I'm not 100% sure on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think so. I think the plan is to eventually do that, but I think still he's with a barrier. I believe.
Yep.
Don't quote me on that.
That's my take on it as well. Yeah, it looks like Blackfeather will be the one going into the lane. Like you said, he has got really good potential with his B ability to poke away at Vox and defend at the same time. So there's the barrier for the first straight away. It doesn't last very long to begin with, but it means that Vox did take a bit of damage, but in return, Blackfeather's full health.
And you're definitely going to want to see that XP splitting here by Empire, and then making sure Koshka gets that level 2, and then going ahead and pushing into the jungle right away. This is a stronger comp than the Glaive. Glaive is going to be squishy, so I would hope to see that they go in on that really quickly. And here they go. Are they going for it? Not sure.
Yeah, I think Koshka took a little bit too long to shop just there, sat in there for a while. They'd already cleared the front two camps and got to back off. They didn't buy, so they went home to make sure they got their shopping done. So they're ready for the next fight. But it just means both teams are going to go back to their back camps, start another round of farming. Maybe we'll see some action in the next rotation.
And that you saw some intense respect for Koshka there, with him transporting home to shop rather than risking an incursion at the jungle shop.
Yeah, they didn't really even try and go up into the lane to put a bit of pressure on to Blackfeather. I think they just knew that any fight they picked would not be in their favor just yet.
And pressure is a good word. It's a very good word, because I love that word in Vainglory. It's very, very important. And you see the lane is particular. Vox Crystal builds with that going for the alternate current is such a slow, arduous, long build that if they put some early pressure on that Vox, you can really put him back in the late game, and that's really important, because in the late game he's going to be really dominating.
It looks like Blackfeather did take a bit of damage off of the Vox just there. Vox is full health again, hasn't had to leave the lane at all. They are sitting on equal farm right now. Blackfeather's got a little bit more to collect from the waves in front of him. But here comes the Koshka and Catherine. I wouldn't be surprised if they tried something here. Koshka sitting on the very, very edge. And if they go right now, they could have easily picked up a kill on Vox. But I think they're just going to have to back off right now.
Yeah, it's weird, because when you see Vox rotating down into that lane shop, that's when you should hit that flare. Catherine had a flare. Use that flare right there and then go in on it. They would have gotten that gank.
Yeah, I didn't know she did have a flare in her inventory, so that would have been a pretty easy spot out for them if she'd used that one. Meanwhile, both the laners are farming very, very well. It's quite passive up there right now. This time it seems to be Arden and Glaive paying them a visit. Blackfeather might be a little bit cocky after his teammates just leaving. He is in a position for the afterburn to come out, but I think with Vox going a little bit going aggressive, a little bit too early without his teammates. He did back off.
Yeah, and I think it's a fine art to leashing and baiting into a gank like that, and it's really all about timing. They could still have done it. It's just they needed a little bit more coordination. You can always use a boots into an afterburn if you really want it. I think key thing here, if you look, is at the CS numbers: 33 CS to 20 CS. Considering it's a Vox, it's actually quite good. And you can see Blackford put a scout trap in his lane bush. That's really smart. So you can now continue to bully Vox even further and make him lose even more CS.
Yeah, he's now pushed under turret, which means Blackfeather can roam down with Koshka and Catherine already in the enemy jungle.
Poke.
Oh,
Poke
ow.
almost killed him there. Oh, he does kill him in the end. Takes some turret damage. Nice job there in that.
Yeah, that was a slow, just like slowly chipping away at him. He was caught under turret with all those minions as well, so that's a lot of farm going to waste. It just extends the gold lead in Blackfeather's favor, who's almost double Vox's CS right now.
And he hasn't even shopped yet. He's sitting on 2,100 gold. He needs to go ahead and shop now that they've got a pause in all the break.
He is going incredibly tanky early on as well. There's a Dragon Heart and a Barb Needle. He's just going for sustain, hoping to keep that lane, not waste any farm at all. Probably poke down Vox slowly but surely like he's been doing.
And Koshka's almost to that Aftershock. Spent a little bit of extra money on an early Oak Heart and a Crystal Bit. So it's not going to get that Aftershock quite as quickly. But, considering the way that Vox is really underfarmed right now, I think it's okay. And they're going to catch the rotation too, and they're going to steal these camps here.
Yeah, Koshka did actually buy that Oak Heart in the very first shop that they had. She was also trying to use it for the early team fight that they would have had against the Glaive, but it's good to have it still. I mean, she's hit level 6 just now, so we'll be able to use her Yummy Cannon Frenzy, and Vox is very pushed up in the lane right now. Has the backup of Glaive and Arden, but here they go to team fight. I mean, they're good Afterburn peeling away Blackfeather, but Vox still goes down to the Koshka, who's taking turret hits for her efforts. Very, very low right now. Catherine also taking some turret shots, but Blackfeather, meanwhile, is very healthy. Sitting there on his Barb Needle, he can still heal up from more lane minions left.
Yeah, that was a potentially dangerous engagement there to dive that deep in, especially in this stage of the game. There wasn't a good counter from the Glaive. He wasn't doing enough damage output there until he gets that tension mode, which is what he's building next. I think in that situation, what you need to do is, if you are Blackfeather, you need to front line a little bit more and maybe take a couple turret shots so that your team can go in and dive in further, because he had full health. So he could do that, and that's what he needs to do a little bit better.
Yep, I think the focus of their gameplay right now is just starve out this Fox. Blackfeather sustains so much that he can just keep poking. He's taking like all the minion aggro right now and still staying on full health as well. Fox is allowed to push up and get a few creeps right now, but he's just too scared of that lane bush. They do now know that Catherine and Koshka are in their own jungle, so Glaive and Arden are roaming up to join Vox.
And they're going to take that early minion mine too, which is going to get a little bit of gold there. But the pressure is on, and there's a really nice knockback here. He's getting away again with just so much health and poking. There goes a nice flare out there, and now they're going to rotate. Oh, look at the Yummy Cat present under the turret. But look at the turret shots taking him, and Koshka goes down to a couple of turret hits. That was not a good engagement there. Yummy Cat Frenzy under the turret. What were they thinking?
Way too aggressive right now. I think it's happened in the last team fight, but they just got punished so much more for it this time. Yummy Cannon Frenzy was done underneath the turret, so she trapped herself in to take all those shots, and Vox still didn't go down. He managed to clear up that lane wave, get a little bit more farm, and he is going to be teleporting home right now.
Koshka, you're drunk, go home. Stop taking them crazy pills. You don't want Koshka to initiate on a Yummy Cannon Frenzy unless it is clear that you've got somebody separated out, away from the turret preferably. You want your Catherine to be initiating on that. So at least if Catherine had initiated first and got the stun, and then she did Yummy Cat and Frenzy, at least Catherine would have taken a couple of turret shots first.
Yeah, I agree with that. And Catherine is still mobile enough that she can get out rather than being locked down with a skill like that.
Yeah, if you're going to do that. I don't recommend you do that, but if you're going to do that, then you need to let Catherine initiate.
Dive safe.
Always dive with protection.
Now, what I would say is their early aggression hasn't really paid off in the way of kills or objectives. They've got a small gold advantage, which might come into their favor later on, but it could all be wasted by a bad team fight or like another over-aggressive play. Blackfeather's doing incredibly well, farming more than Vox, but they've just not gotten anything off the back of it yet. Blackfeather will scale into late game better, but if it goes long enough, Vox is just going to be able to clear enough waves that he will get the items he needs, unless Glaive steals his farm.
Yeah, that's always makes me feel nice when they do that. But I think this is wow, they're going for that gold mine. Without vision in the tri-burst, this is really dangerous. One afterburn can steal this. There comes a gauntlet in. There comes the afterburn in. They're going for the kill instead. Yummy Captain Frenzy goes it out. But look at Vox getting deleted, and they're gonna. Orange Team is gonna take the gold mine. They got the gold mine. They got the 300 gold payout. Glaive is gonna pay the price. It's a 2-for-1 deal, but is it worth? Is it #worth? That's the question.
Oh, I really think that was not the best play from Arden. He caught all three in the gauntlet, didn't even manage to separate them. He could have either separated or got a stun landing on at least one of them, but instead, it was just like a normal team fight. The gauntlet did nothing for them.
Yeah, you don't want to use the gauntlet like that. I mean, you can save it. I mean, he could have, if he hadn't used it, he could have saved it so that they could have ran away and used it as a defensive gauntlet.
Yeah, that would have been a possibility as well. I just think if they'd separated them away from the gold miner at least, rather than everyone in with it, they could have stolen it safely or got the kills safely and then turned on gold mine. They did get a lot out of it. 1 kill plus gold mine for 2 kills, which probably goes in the favor of insane potential, which credit to them. Glaive knew exactly when to turn around onto the gold mine. They weren't going to win the team fight in the end, so he managed to pick that up before dying, which was a really good move from him.
I mean, also, the other thing is, take a look at Vox's build. He hasn't even finished his Altering Current. It's going in the 10th minute. Altering Current is a great earlier game item, and if you don't buy it early enough, don't get it. Because the amount of damage that it will do to you and the worth is not worth it in this part of the game. If I'm Vox now, I've bypassed the window for the Altering Current. I'm just going to build Ultra Shadowglass and try to build towards my ultimate and my resonance.
Yep, he definitely wants to delete people instead. But they are putting a lot of damage onto Catherine in these team fights. Glaive and the goldmine fight managed to kill Catherine first. I think they really need to work on their targeting a little bit more.
Yep, and there goes in. They're all three in the lane now. There's some poking. He's got Blackfoot has overdrive on his A skill, so he's got that long range, just continuing to poke. And this is where I think here comes a gauntlet, and it does hit double of them. Will it be enough? Here comes the silence. Look at Arden get absolutely deleted. He drops first. Glaive needs to back off. Will the turret dive this? No, because an ultimate comes across from Vox and pushes them away.
That was very, very questionable fights from both of them. I mean, the gauntlet just put Arden so out of position, and there was no follow-up from either of his teammates. The wait for it was available, but had to just held on to that to use it defensively instead. The gauntlet did manage to catch both Koshka and Blackfeather on the wall in the very first landing, so it was really good placement, but maybe not the right timing.
I can't stress enough when you're playing Arden, and I play a lot of Arden. If you are going to do a gauntlet, number one, you need to make sure your teammates know so that they're close enough. Because if they're not close enough in proximity to when they get hit by the edge of the wall, the stun is going to be worn off by the time you even get within shooting range. And that's a problem I saw with that. And it's very clear to me that they're not communicating well. They're not talking. I don't even know if they're using voice comms, because typically if an Arden's going to make that movement, his teammate's going to then go ahead and focus in on either that Koshka or that Blackfeather, and they didn't.
Well, it would have been a really good follow-up with the double stun. He had an easily lined up wait for it. Here comes Koshka using the boots active to try and get in there, but doesn't manage to catch anyone out. Vox makes it back into the tower. All three are teleporting back right now, I think. Oh, okay, two of them decided to stay. I mean, Glaive and Arden, realizing that all three couldn't go back or they would leave a free turret open.
Well, they're going to give it a free gold mine instead. But, I mean, that's another subtle thing that I want to point out. Don't teleport in front of the enemy like that. You're basically telling the enemy, here, you have a free pass to do an objective, you have a free pass to take a gold mine, you have a free pass to invade my jungle, because I'm not there. And they know how much time, good teams will know roughly how much time it takes you to walk with tier 1 boots from spawn to the jungle, right? I mean, good analysts and stuff will clock it. They'll sit in the practice mode with a stopwatch and they'll time it, so they'll know. So that's just one tiny piece of a higher level play that teams need to start taking note of and doing this.
Yep, I think Vox didn't quite take your advice. He has gone for the alternating current. Does have tier 2 boots. I like that on the Glaive and Vox. They know that they're not in the most commanding position, so they've realized mobility is key for them. The Vox has just recently overtaken Glaive on farm, so things may be starting to look up for them a little bit, but still with Blackfeather sitting on 122 creep score, still has an infusion running right now, has 2 fully built tier 3 items. he is going to be an absolute menace when a full-on team fight finally breaks out.
Well, I mean, never say never. I think really what they need to do is they need to wait for that late game so that, they get a good ace in the late game, which they can do because they're doing enough damage output now. Glaive, he could take out somebody, because the problem I see with the blue team right now is that essentially they're pushing all the damage responsibilities onto Koshka, because you're seeing Blackfeather build out super tanky Aegis, Serpent's Mask, and Shiver Steel, and only a Blazing Salvo, which means his base damage is all he's got. And so as you go into the late game, their damage is going to fall off even more. Koshka is the only one that's going to be doing damage, whereas Glaive and Vox are only going to get stronger, and that might lead to a late game ace, and maybe a Kraken too.
I'd have one counterplay to you there, though. Just wait until you see the 5 Heartthrob stacks for Blackfeather using his A, and then see how much of his just basic damage he has.
Yeah, I mean, and they're not counter building too much either. I mean, they need to get more armor and stuff, but they're not really building out much defense. And here comes the Gauntlet.
Followed by, wait for it, yep, here comes the Yummy Cannon Frenzy down. I can't tell who that's onto. I think it's onto the Vox there, though. Vox is the first one to go down to the Catherine. Minx is trying to run away on the Glaive, but cannot get away from this Koshka. They're diving this turret. Koshka going incredibly low, taking a couple of turret shots, but the ace buff will help her survive and escape from that. They're going to get at least a couple of turrets off of this, I imagine.
Yeah, and again, the problem here is the Gauntlet. I mean, you're trapping the entire enemy in there, and they're under leveled, and they're not quite as powerful. They don't have their power spike yet, so they needed to wait and be patient. But instead, they're not. And they're going to pay for it with 2 turrets.
Yep, it was just a little bit of a delayed reaction from Vox and Glaive. They did get the wait for it down. Did hit a decent amount of the members of the enemy team. I think it hit 2 or maybe all 3. But then after that, they just had no follow-up. I don't think Glaive was on the same page there either. Koshka managed to get her Yummy Cannon Frenzy down, and they could just delete Vox immediately.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's only got that light armor. That's all he got. That's all he has is light armor. And Glaive only has a kinetic shield, I think it is. Yeah, so very, very squishy right now. One ultimate. Couple ultimate spams on them, and they will melt.
Yep, especially from the likes of Blackfeather with his Rose Offensive and the Koshka lockdown with Yummy Cannon Frenzy. I think they're just relying on Arden using his Crucible to block those.
Good luck. I mean, even top level teams are really hard pressed to block a Crucible block, a Koshka ult. I mean, most people can't even do it when they have their own reflex, much less having a support try to catch it.
Well, you do see some of the top players, you'll often see them never caught out by a Koshka Yummy Cannon Frenzy. It's one of the ones where when you start doing well and you practice it in games and you specifically focus on it, it becomes second nature if you've blocked it enough times. Obviously, it's an acquired skill. You have to be focusing on it. But it looks like we're going to see a Kraken started off here. And
they don't have vision in that tri-bush. And Arden showed himself. He could go in. He steals it. He steals the Kraken. He steals the Kraken with the afterburn. What a steal! But Dawn comes out. Are they going to pay for it and get the lead? But Rubber Monkey's super low. But they take out Glaive instead. This is going to be a free 500 gold for them. They might just push and take the win. Actually, is what they could do.
I don't think the death times are quite long enough just yet. They could get the free 500 gold from Kraken. It will do a little bit of damage to the turret, but I think they realized after a small dilemma there that they weren't going to be able to finish the game just yet.
But they did get an ace, one ace, and now free 500 gold for them, anyways. But it was a great steal. But again, that you gotta have vision in that try push. An afterburn from Glaive is one of the easiest ways to steal Kraken, and they just didn't have it. Catherine just needed to walk over to the right a little bit, turn on her Storm card, and stun Glaive right before they were going to take the Kraken, and they would have had it.
Well, they did get the benefit out of that. They got the 3 kills, the 500 gold. I think it was more of a bait that they were like, hey, if you want this Kraken, you've got to come out and die for it.
Makes for good TV. I'm trying to make this a Netflix, Netflix drama here, just trying to draw the team fights.
I know they did win that team fight, but you've got to watch out for the Koshka dropping off soon. She's got the infusion on right now, has double infusions right now, so does Blackfeather. They've got to want to end this game in the next couple of minutes.
Glaive with only 1 stack on his Blood Song. They need to back off, which they are doing now.
Yep, I wouldn't be surprised.
I still don't see enough crystal damage onto Vox. I don't see enough defense. So this last team fights, I think, again, they do not want to fight these guys with the double infused.
Yep, he definitely needs like a reflex block at least. Arden's not managing to give enough support to block your Mechanic Frenzy. He's always the target from it because he's not getting those blocks down. It should be his next pickup, but then I'm still surprised seeing the tier 2 battery right now. He needs a little bit better energy conservation and more investment into actual damage, I think.
Yeah, I think initially he wanted to probably go that Eve of Harvest, but I think he had to get that Broken Myth first because everybody was building out Heavy Shield.
Yep, it could work for him if he builds into the Eve of Harvest right now, but still would have preferred going for the Heavy Prism first.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, he's not even using his abilities to wave clear, so I mean, he doesn't need that battery.
And then Catherine is just cheekily bought an Aftershock, so they're looking to just more offense.
And there's a Warhorn from Catherine.
Ooh, they're going to stun on... That's the block. Okay, now that's the first block we saw. That was a good block on that Yummy Cat in a Frenzy. Vox kiting in on that Koshka. Here comes Black Feather in, but he gets hit by the Gauntlet Wall. Misses his B skill. Now they're going to back off. I think this is when they need to push. There's a nice afterburn in. Catherine does melt, and they're going to go ahead and push again.
Gotta be careful here, though. Blackfeather could turn around and turn that team fight with Fox and Glaive being so low. I think they've fended them off for now, but they're just going to return to the Kraken pit. Kraken's already respawned.
Yeah, and I think go ahead and I think maybe once they heal up, go ahead and take back one of those minion mines is pretty important there, so that they can kind of prevent that push, because otherwise they'll be constantly under pressure from those minions.
The risk I said of Koshka dropping off has happened there. They just picked a bad team fight. Her weakness really showed. I think it was one of the more unconventional chain stuns I've seen. Glaive afterburned Blackfeather into a position where Arden then dropped the gauntlet wall on top of him.
Well, we were just talking about not being able to block that with the Crucible, but he already managed to actually block that Young Captain Frenzy with the Crucible. And that last, and that's what won them that fight.
She's proving you wrong right there.
Proving me wrong.
He got called out.
All exceptions happen. You know, if he does it again, I'll give him props.
I think it was just a lot of skills being spammed. There's a Warhorn in from Catherine again. They're going to target the Vox. Another block for the Catherine stun. The Sans comes out though. There's the Mechanic Frenzy on a dead Vox. Glaive now on the run. Catherine is the lowest. I think that's definitely not the right targeting right now. Blackfeather meanwhile is still very, very healthy, and I think they're going to pick up this ace very easily.
Yep, with that heroic perk there from Koshka, that's going to be the ace.
Asa! No, it's like 30-second death timers on all sides. I mean, there were some good blocks from Arden at the beginning again, but they just wasted all their defense near the start of the fight and didn't really have anything to sustain them when the going really did get tough.
Yeah, and he's going to actually tank this turret, and he doesn't even get to half health there, so... you can see how strong, how tanky he is right now.
Only one turret out of it though, and I mean, Vox is just slowly tilting the scales over that Koshka, I'd say. Blackfeather in the meantime is relying on his Serpent's Mask and doing a lot of damage in the backline. If they can if they can deal with Koshka very, very early on, it's going to be an easy team fight, but the problem is that they leave Blackfeather to build up stacks on everybody.
Yeah, and again, I think Glaive here needs to build more defense. He's gone for more offense, but now is when we can start to lean on that Vox doing some damage and start building out a little bit more defense here. Interesting, he went with the breaking point. That's quite interesting to me because he doesn't really need the breaking point because it doesn't have enough defense to sustain. So it's interesting. We'll see.
Another Kraken attempt without vision in the Tribush. Catherine now sees the Glaive, and they're starting on Rubber the Monkey. Here comes the Yummy Kind of Frenzy onto Vox. Manages to get it down. The block comes out afterwards, a little bit too late. Vox gets deleted again before he can get any of his skills off. And there is the Warhorn from Arden to try and get Glaive out, but he gets caught out himself. It's like you said, no defense, gets deleted almost instantly. And Rubber the Monkey, with very low health, very low energy, is going to rely on this ace buff coming in very, very soon.
Yeah, and they're gonna go ahead and take him out, and that should be the GG. They can make a push here as the minions are up in the lane, and all with the ace buff, so they go ahead and finish the game now.
Yeah, well, they've got Catherine this time to tank the turret for them. 20 seconds until Vox is up. This should be game this time. They dealt with the turret last time in the same time frame. one extra person, and it looks like that's just going to get absolutely melted. Fusion's just wearing off, so they timed it very, very well. Koshka's Crystal Fusion going down as well.
And all this, I mean, it does highlight the the characters, their weaknesses and strengths. I mean, definitely Vox could have tilted that, but again, too little, too late. It's more about the timing of when he gets that spike, and you can see that early push from Blackfeather on the farm wise. Basically, as I said earlier, just made it so that he got a lot of those like the alternate current very, very late, and that resulted in that him not being able to come back and push against that Koshka when Koshka, Koshka's damage went down.
Yeah, he just pushed Vox's power spike back so much later, and Blackfeather doing an incredible job this whole game, going 7-0 and 10. That sustained build with very little damage. Only the Serpent's Mask breaking point seems to have worked out very well for him.
Well, I think I would caution against these builds. I think, to me, more than what the builds were, I think it was a teamwork. I think it was, the engagements, initiations, and a lot of it had to do with mistakes made on the Insane Potentials team in terms of bad engagements, gauntleting, a lot of low-level fights and things like that. Not enough defense. I think a lot of that led to this. They were not challenged at all, really, Mega Empire. So, I wouldn't put too much stress on the builds. A little bit more on the teamwork and mistakes that their opponents made.
Yeah, more reflex blocks. That's all I want to see. One Koshka Yummy Cannon Frenzy is all they managed to block, and that is just not good enough at this stage of the competition. You need to be completely shutting down this Koshka, not allowing her to get that off for free, or punishing her with some damage when she does. But yeah, we will go into the lobby again and get ready for the second match now. Just a moment while I swap these teams around. So what do you expect to see out of them team comp-wise for the next game? Obviously, Fortress was banned out. So was Sky, I believe. Koshka was the third that you said was the most meta right now, the strongest. Do you expect to see similar bans and picks this time, or are we going to see the more powerful heroes left open?
Yeah, I expect to see pretty much the same type of comps. I think what they need is they need to come up with a comp that can fight against an early aggression comp. So typically when you're looking at building out your comps as a competitive team, you need to segment your comp strategies and your draft strategies into early, mid, and late game type comps, so that when you face against a team comp like this Koshka one that you had in the last one, you've got an alternating one that can fight back in the early game. Glaive is not a bad pick for the early game against the Koshka, but it requires a little bit more rotation down from your laner. If they had a Sky, if they had somebody else to fight against that Koshka, I think it would have been better. But without Fortress, I'm not sure if they're quite familiar with Ozo, which would be my new kind of golden boy pick to fight against Koshka. And I'll tell you why. It's simply because Ozo right now does massive amounts of damage against Koshka. His third bounce, so I played a game where I was Koshka and the enemy was a CP Ozo. And I had a full Aegis, and I had, your standard Aftershock, Aegis, a Broken Myth build, and he had a Shatterglass and a Broken Myth, and that was, and basically his third bounce onto me did.
Oh,
absolutely deleted me.
Yeah, you cut off slightly on the end of the story there. His third bounce doing the big chunk of damage, was it?
477 damage through an Aegis.
It's pretty good. We do see the second draft has started. The exact same bans coming out, but on opposite sides. We've had the Sky ban from Insane Potential this time, followed by the Fortress ban from Mega Empire, and the first pick Koshka. This is really really familiar, I'd say.
Flip-flopped. But will they have the same degree of success? So let's see what they counter, what Empire counters the early game Koshka with.
I would be very, very surprised to see them go for the exact same team comp in response. Blackfeather is still open to them. Wouldn't be a bad pick right now. But there are some very strong laners options available.
If we didn't see a Ringo, which would have been an interesting pick too.
Well, that's what I was expecting in the last game, but there was just an abundance of melee choices, and Vox really suffered for that, not being able to peel away, just ending up in the middle of all these team fights exactly where he doesn't want to be.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to try to. It looks like they're going to try to lock in the characters they want first. A Catherine over in Arden says to me they're going to need a team comp that's a bit more offensive. There you do see the Vox locked in.
So it looks like they're going for a double silence strategy right now. On the other side, they're going for the standard pick in response, which would be Arden. There's no out of the meta Finn or anything coming out right now, followed by a Ringo. So they are going for a very, very early game strategy and same potential. So we'll have to see how much they can do in the first 15 minutes and if they can close out this game before they risk Koshka dropping off, as she was almost doing in the last game.
Yeah, and this is whoa, a Scarf and a Vox. This is really interesting. Not a strong pick in my mind. Both Scarf and Vox are late game heroes, slow to farm, slow to build up. Scarf is a little bit better because of his base damage with the Spitfires, but Ringo, if it's a lean Scarf, Ringo can definitely bully the Scarf back. So this is going to be challenging for Empire to see against this really strong core, kind of grandfather meta that's been around for ages.
Yeah, this is definitely a resurfacing one. Again and again, you'll see Ringo, Koshka, Arden coming out. Like, it's such a safe choice. Many players have played it since they started the game, so it's probably the most comfortable heroes for a lot of players and some of the strongest consistently. Now, what I want to know is, where is Vox and Scarf going to go? I think Scarf should go into the jungle. Looks like Vox is picking up the armor, so hinting at him going towards the lane to try and fend off Ringo.
Yeah, and the Swift Shooter is going to be a jungle Scarf so that he can farm faster and continue to get those Fan the Flame perks up as much as possible in the jungle fight. But again, a squishy flying worm versus the Koshka, I think I'll take the Koshka any day.
If Koshka can successfully dive straight onto him, then it's definitely an easy game. But if they dance around a little bit too much, spend too long trying to initiate a fight, and Scarf can get a few ticks of Fan the Flames down, Koshka's health will very fast deplete very, very fast.
Yeah, if Koshka's already got level 2 without taking that minion, if I'm them, I'm going to go for a fight right now. Go for a fight right now. Go in. Go, go, go. There's a flare. There goes in. The stun in on Koshka. Nice stun on there. There comes the goop to prevent Koshka from diving in. That's smart. Very smart.
Yeah, that was very, very good team play.
That's how you fight. That's how you fight against that Koshka. But they're going to give up some minion caps. Not too much, though.
Insane Potential did really well, like just going straight over the jungle. They ignored everything about the bottom camps, ignoring the shop, which they probably should have gone and purchased something before the fight began. They could have maybe picked up the kill, but they knew exactly how aggressive they had to be with this Koshka.
Yeah, and it's interesting that Koshka went with that early Hourglass instead of the crystal bits. It looked like she's definitely wants to build out an early Aftershock, which is fine. But I think, for me, if you really want to leverage this, because your rate of farming should be faster than Scarf, you want to just clear your farm as much as possible and continue to put pressure. I was really impressed with how quick Ringo rotated down as well. Vox didn't rotate down very fast. Ringo was already there, and that's interesting because that means that they're going to have a lot more chances to push against that two-man jungle.
Well, one thing I would say about the pressure points of this game, the jungle is doing incredibly well. The Koshka Arden are pushing them out again and again, managing to secure the front camps. That's slowly going to become a little bit more. Ringo does rotate down well, but there's just no lane pressure. Vox is farming so easily, and there comes Koshka jumping onto the back lane off Scarf. But they've turned onto Catherine, who's now very, very low and has to use her boots active to get out of there.
Yeah, and there you see Arden taking a lot of that damage there. Pushing up in the lane a little bit too far. Ringo does not want to go up in there because he'll get easily stunned and killed out from that Catherine. He wants to go back the other way. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like they're going to continue to push there, although they could have at least gone for that second heal minion because they had that scout trap in the tri-bush.
Yeah, they knew it was a safe passage to go. That was almost a free camp that they've given up, but they do have their own back camps to secure. They weren't the healthiest themselves, probably didn't want to be caught out 3v2. It was a bit of a risk.
Gotta live on the edge, man. Gotta live on the edge.
With an early game comp like this, you've definitely got to take risks, though. Excuse excuse me. You did see Fabian's though on the Arden taking a lot of damage from the Scarf ticks over time. Obviously not the target you want to be getting, but it could have been a kill for them. It could have helped them in the early game. There hasn't been any kills yet though, so pretty uneventful so far.
Yeah, take a look at the gold K, 6.1K to 5.7K, and they're 196 damage on that Scarf. He has to pull back already. They're hugging that lane, but there's no farm for them to steal. So actually not a bad situation for Team Mega Empire right now.
Yep, pretty good rotations out of them. They're managing to secure the back 3 camps at the very least most of the time. Oh, as rotating as 3 now though, here comes the Insane Potential team, and they managed to delete Catherine even when for her Stormguard shield to come up. Rubber Monkey going down second.
That damage on that.
Yeah.
That Koshka is just ridiculous, and she's got the double Eclipse Prism, so they're just outpowering. And now you're seeing the power of this. Here comes Ringo's in trouble, but that nice Vanguard catches the counterattack. Koshka is in, will get the kill, does get the kill. So that was that a conscious bait from Ringo? I don't know. He will say yes in the interview. we will say doubtful, skeptical.
I'd say boots and run.
I would say that was the most ultimate bait I've ever seen if he did on purpose.
Well, here comes Scarf into the lane to try and make sure he can secure some of these camps before they go to waste. He was trying to catch out the Ringo, but misses the Spitfire, unfortunately. Mega Empire have the lane pushed up really, really far, but Ringo managing to secure most of this farm. Doing better than last time. Obviously, Ringo is much, much easier to farm with than Vox, though.
Yeah, and it's interesting that Koshka bypassed the Aftershock, buying the double Eclipse Prism just for the stronger early game. Will it pan out in the end? We'll have to see.
Yep, obviously she's planning on going for something other than the Broken Myth later on, though. That's what's confusing me. Yeah,
I mean, as far as the gold too, and they need to flare this bush. They don't have any flares left. Oh, but here comes Arya. He's gonna face check it. Here comes a stun in on that Koshka. There goes. Will they get the turret aggro? Yes, she does have the turret aggro. That's a big problem for her. She goes down to that turret. It's a 1-for-1 deal, but Catherine's full. And I think what I really like about this Catherine right now is she's saving her stun for Koshka. So every time Koshka dives in, Koshka gets stunned, and that's a really good way to counter that Koshka coming in on you.
Yep, definitely. There's some burst in return on her. Turn her around. Turn her the other way, make sure she's not dealing any damage to your carries. But Vox did get a lot of damage at the start of that fight. I think he only has that light armor, but he's a weapon Vox as well. So that when he did proc the Sonic Zoom onto Koshka in return, it did do a fair chunk of damage.
Yeah, but we've seen this weapon box being played in SEA to great effect once they build out that Sorrow Blade, Tornado Trigger, and Tyrant's Monocle. They do massive amounts of deletion. So, I'm not going to say that this box isn't going to make a big difference in late game too, because he will with this build, if he builds that crit damage.
Well, that's the benefit of this weapon Vox instead of the crystal. You don't have to wait as long for any ramp up time. Weapon damage comes a lot faster than, like you said, the very expensive, very slow ramp up of the alternating current kind of build.
Yeah, and I think that's something that teams should consider more when they go against a really strong weapon laner like a Ringo, or somebody who's like a Blackfeather who's really strong in the early game. As you saw with that last game, Blackfeather coming in really strong there, and here comes the gauntlet, hits that. But gets stunned out of her Yummy Catman's Frenzy from a nice Catherine. Merciless Pursuit. Catherine has to get out there. There goes the Spitfire, and the death. Wait for it. Comes in across and pushes them back. Cash goes back in for the deletion. Will she get the kill? No, but here comes Hellfire Brew. He's going to take out Vox. Good night, goodbye. 250 damage in your face parts.
Just got that much easier closeout for the final kill. Obviously, Faker is incredibly low as well, so it's just the benefit of having that skill of the Hellfire Brew on Ringo. They're going to push the turret here, and the Spitfire does land on Ringo. He's very, very low right now, but Koshka deleted Vox to turret aggro shot in the meantime, but they're both just living through this.
Just living through, and that was a good call. I mean, and to me, Faker, seeing him play on Koshka, this is definitely a comfort pick for him. The way he's moving in, the way he's playing, he's living on the edge. The way that he's playing Koshka is very good, and how he should be playing Koshka. Not teleporting back home every time you get a little bit of health knocked off. Picking his engagements to come back into the fight, going out of the fight into that lane bush, waiting, and then jumping back in to kill that Vox, will basically kill that Vox, is very, very characteristic of good Koshka players.
Much more assassin type play, I'd say, definitely. I love the Catherine stun blocking the Yummy Catnip Frenzy though. Again, we're either seeing like some of the best plays ever or a little bit of luck in with this. She did jump in, and like you said, Catherine has been saving her stun for the Koshka. Who needs a reflex block when you can just stun her out of it though?
Yeah, but I think that might have actually worked out in their favor, because I think had Koshka got the Yummy Catnip Frenzy, I think it would have been another turret dive, and they may have lost that fight. She may have gone down to that. So I think in the end, that was actually probably better for her not to have done that.
Yep, it was a really good gauntlet initiation though. I think that's definitely what started the fight off well. Managed to stun, I think it was Scarf on the edge of it, and that's where the Yummy Catnip Frenzy was targeted. Just in turret range, possibly. Will definitely could have been a questionable fight. I'm not sure though. It looks like all three members of Insane Potential are hiding in the lane right now, trying to put a bit of pressure on Vox, but he's allowed to farm up, and Koshka and Arden are going to go and aggress into the jungle to try and steal some of these back camps.
And you see Koshka using Yummy Catnip Frenzy in on that Scarf to lock him down. There comes a Gauntlet. Will it catch him? Yes, it does catch him as well, but Koshka's too far away. They're going to go for the Vox instead. Here comes the Hellfire Brew again. Kablooey! He hits a wait for it. I don't know why he hit the wait for. Maybe because they thought he was going to turret dive on that Scarf, and so that's what he was doing. But that was an absolute massacre. Great Gauntlet once again from Fabians there on that Arden.
You're definitely seeing some very, very good support play this game. Both Catherine and the Arden are some of the MVPs so far. Koshka managed to get the Yummy Catnip Frenzy down before Scarf could block it, which a little bit of a delayed reaction on Scarf. He was the only one to survive the fight though.
Yeah, they're going to give up this gold mine, massive 300 payout. Now you're seeing the gold start to spike for them, 19.5k to 15.6k. So, only 4k difference with gold bounties towards the end. Not going to be a huge worry for them, but they don't want to keep giving it up, and that's kind of the key.
Look at that, news feed down the side, though. You got Sorrow Blade picked up by Ringo, a Crucible picked up by Arden, and a Fountain picked up by Koshka. They want some fights right now. This is a massive power spike.
Yeah, and what Mega Empire needs to do now is they need to focus at Ringo. You saw I guess I was watching the VGL Korea, and there was a game where basically the entire team just targeted the Ringo. Like, they warhorned in and just went after him balls out, and just basically they won that game because they just completely killed the Ringo every single time. And that's something that they want to consider here, because he's got no defense, they've got a stun, they've got goop, they have double silence. They can take him out, they can get to him. No problem. It's just they need to do it. And instead, they're getting distracted by this Koshka.
Yeah. If they can tactically use their silences onto the Koshka and Arden while diving on the Ringo, he's going to go down so fast without the benefit of a fountain behind him.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting idea, because what will allow them to do is, because if they dive in without any benefit of silences, what will happen is Koshka will just use her Yummy Catnip Frenzy on whoever is diving in on that Ringo, Scarf or Vox, and then they may just get a nice counter out of it. But yeah, I think what they need to do here is they need to just start to focus on their targets a little bit better.
Yep, obviously Scarf is quite tough to pick who you're targeting. You've got the Spitfire to land. It's more of a poking tool at the beginning of fights. Whoever happens to be on fire is probably your best target in the middle. But I mean, if they're trying to dive that Ringo, Vox is their best bet. Go for the silence. Go for the double proc. The double hits from the Sonic Zoom to begin with, and that's going to chunk him down.
Here comes a Gauntlet, and they get everything's blocked. Catherine uses her ultimate to stun, and that's a wasted Gauntlet. Nice job on the doubles, but they burnt out the reflex blast. They have to be very careful. Yummy Catnip Frenzy and Hellfire Brew are still up. They want to be very careful not to expose themselves here.
Yep, I think you're definitely right. They managed to waste both reflex blocks. Both ultimates from the supports are gone as well. So it looks like neither team want to risk and engage when there's so much already down.
I also was going to say, earlier I was going to say, look, if Catherine manages to get a stun in on Ringo, or stun on Koshka even, they could follow up with the Dragon Breath, but then I looked at Monkey, and he doesn't have any points in his Dragon Breath. So he's maxed out his A and his B, but no points. And they're going to dive this. Here comes the wait for it. Hellfire Brew comes out. It's too late. It's going to take 365 damage. And the lead out, little pork bun, making some pork bun dinner, he goes down. And Scarf now getting just absolutely kited by that Ringo, but no more Hellfire Brew.
Yep, I think there's definitely what you were saying about them trying to target Ringo. It looks like in return, that is what that's what Insane Potential are doing instead to the Mega Empire's Vox. They're just completely demolishing him whenever he's left alone.
And I mean, they no fear against the turret either. I mean, he was next to the turret up by the bush, and they still dove in on him. So no fear from them at all. And I think that's the question to be said about the turrets. Do they need to be doing more damage? And we've talked about turrets in the past, and do they scale up based on the game, etc. But I think there you're seeing a clear example of a team diving on turrets like they used to do in the earlier versions. And here comes a stun in on Ringo. They finally got him, but here comes no Dragon Breath out because of that stun from the Gauntlet, and that's not a good engagement from Mega Empire.
If you saw Ringo in the backline there when Scarf got stunned, I mean, he was just standing still, firing out. He's using that tornado trigger instead of starter stepping, just standing in one place, activates his twirling silver, and outputs a ton of damage.
Yeah, and the tornado trigger is interesting, but I don't usually go with the tornado trigger because I got twirling silver. I opt to go for more damage, but in this case, since Koshka is doing still quite a bit of damage, he can do that, and he's not being targeted. But for me, I would still prefer a bit more crit instead, because if you're not getting focused, one Achilles heel with a crit attached to it and a Sorrow Blade can absolutely delete anybody. You got Pork Bun with only a reflex block. You've got Rubber Monkey with only a reflex block. This will do nothing when you're running a Sorrow Blade and a Tyrant's Monocle.
That's very true. It looks like Tyrants is going to be his next pickup. He's got the 2 components ready. Weapon Infusion is just wearing off, so he did invest a little bit more to make sure they got that turret down. Kraken has just spawned onto the map. We haven't seen a lot of Goldmine action this entire game, though.
Yeah, and you can see Pork Bun also going with that Tyrant's Monocle and Sorrow Blade. So he, it really depends upon who gets engaged first. And right now, the favor is on, on Insane Potential to get that focus in on the Vox rather than Empire focusing on the Ringo. Bit more mobility on the Ringo with that swirling silver. But, it really comes down to this I think this next team fight will be a big decider in this game.
Yeah, we could see a couple of turrets falling if either team gets an ace. That would open up the base of Mega Empire, or manage to swing everything in favor of or manage to swing in Mega Empire's favor if they actually manage to win a team fight. They only have 1 kill on the board right now, so Vox sitting on 1-4-0. I don't think things are looking too great for them right now, and without it being a Crystal Vox, they've not got that same delete potential late game that they would like. But both Vox and with a Scarf on the back as well, he's going to be scaling very, very well. Already has a Frostburn, going for a Broken Myth by the look of it next.
Yeah, and again, we haven't seen him use his Dragon Breath the entire game either, and so that can absolutely delete out teams. The other thing that's interesting to note is they're less than 5K below in gold, even though they're 10-1. So gold bounties OP right now, as you're seeing.
Yeah, they're just farming very, very well, I'd say. The one thing I would like to point out, though, you've said about the Dragon's Breath, I know he's not playing around it like some players can with Scarf. Usually you decide in the beginning of the game whether you're going to max out Dragon's Breath and use it with like an Arden Gauntlet or a Catherine Stun and Silence sort of combo. Even if he does opt to use it before a team fight, he's going to be turning Ringo the other way. Ringo has such little health that if he gets clipped by any part of the Dragon's Breath, he's going to be taking too much damage for him to stick around. He can't just tank it like a Koshka could.
Yeah, and I think, too, is, you mentioned the strategy of the double silence with the Dragon Breath and working that around a team strat. That, to me, would have been the smarter way to do it because of the double silence. I mean, you lead with that double silence and you Dragon Breath and Ringo gets deleted. You reflex block Koshka's Cat in a Frenzy on you at the start of your Dragon Breath, and you're pretty much set.
Well, it looks like Ringo has joined the fight. He is just standing in one place, like I said again, managing to take out Scarf, who just doesn't even try and move away, I think. Both the problem is just immobility.
Oh,
no one's kiting around.
The crit. So you managed to lock in that crit, that Tyrant's Monocle, and as I mentioned to you, once you get that Tyrant's Monocle, it is literally really GG because he's doing so much damage. 333 damage to the turrets with consecutive 4-5 second crit shots with a tornado trigger.
Yeah, just watch him, he'll just stand there and then unload 4 or 5 shots in one place. There we go again, onto the Scarf. Scarf just can't get away.
Welcome to the meld zone. Can we take your order? 399 shots on Scarf. Wow. That is why I like the Tyrants and Sawblade combo.
And there is one game going over in favor of Insane Potential this time. We're going to be going to another third game. This will be blind pick between Mega Empire and Insane Potential.
And, you know, just go back. I just want to repeat what I said before, how important it is to get the team comps. And it looks like, you know, the team with the stronger team comp, which I would definitely have favored this team comp with the Ringo, Arden, and Koshka at any time. It seems to be the winner here. So it would be really interesting with the blind pick, what we see there. We may even see a mirror comp. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a mirror. You want to talk about the builds a little bit?
Yeah, of course. Obviously, we do see the standard Koshka build coming out. I wonder where that second Eclipse Prism went, though. She has the Aftershock, has a Broken Myth, and then yeah, it looks like she sold that second Eclipse Prism she had in the early game. So not the most money efficient build, but they were leading so dominantly that maybe she had the gold to be able to do that. On the other hand, Vox, I would have maybe liked to see them just go double crystal and try and delete two such squishy heroes. Could have worked out for them with a double Broken Myth, but instead they couldn't get the sustained team fights they needed for Scarf to burn anyone. He wasn't doing any damage before a fight broke out, and whenever Ringo just got in range of Scarf, he'd be deleted in 4 to 5 hits, which was no time at all considering he had that tornado trigger. And 0 defense Ringo seemed to have worked out for them.
Yeah, and I think that's insane. You almost never see that in these tournaments, and it's really pretty much a red flag for lack of focus fire from the other team. If they're going to let him run that, it's just basically you're saying, okay, GG, because you got to focus on that. It's pure and simple. You see somebody with no defense, that has to be your target. The other part about Scarf is if you aren't going to work around your Dragon Breath, then you need to work around your Spitfires. You need to work around that massive range, that 3-second cooldown on the Spitfires, and you need to work around that. But a Frostburn is not enough poke damage with that Spitfire. You get a Shag Glass, you're going to be poking for 300 damage, more on that Ringo, and you're going to have the massive range. You didn't see him leverage that, and that's a big shame. We didn't see him use a Dragon Breath at all. So again, you know, I feel that this is not the right way to be playing Scarf. He needs to be kiting from range. He needs to be poking down that Ringo. You know, he's not doing that, and that is a big shame because you had some good plays from Catherine. You had some good plays from as far as the stuns and as far as, you know, preventing the team from dying, but just not able to come together on that one.
Yeah, I think it's such a strong showing from Insane Potential to come back and get a game in their own favor. Obviously, that early game comp just didn't allow Mega Empire any breathing space. 15 kills to 1, very dominant showing, and all they have to do is wait on Kraken spawning to close that out. I mean, I think Mega Empire didn't pick the best of fights at the end there. Once they saw the Kraken was a lost cause, they could have just backed off and wouldn't have lost the game entirely. Could have just given away a couple of turrets and dealt with the Kraken, but...
Well, at the beginning of the game too, you know, we talked about, you know, we talked about, you know, having a good counter to that early game Koshka, and Vox is not a good counter against an early game Koshka. Is like the worst counter to the early game, or sorry, Scarf. Scarf is like the worst counter to the early game Koshka as you can possibly, in my opinion. You know, anyone would have been better. A Taka would have been, a weapon Taka might have even been better. You know, so to me, it's a bad decision in the draft pick. Really hurting teams, both teams actually, in both games, and it's so apparent because they're so one-sided that you know, it'd be really interesting now with the blind pick to see what happens.
Yep, like you're saying, I would have liked if they just copied the enemy and gone for like a glaive over the top of that Scarf instead. He would be able to dive the backline so much easier. He could delete Ringo, or at least put him into a bad position for Catherine to have a follow-up stun. They had a much easier single target damage, and I just think that having the weapon box didn't quite work.
We know Ozo with the Serpent's Mask is literally unkillable in a lot of cases when he builds out tanky. He's got that ultimate, can use that ultimate, that Bangarang, to go in and knock Ringo back into his teammates, and there you go. There's your focus. So yeah, and you know, Glaive could have done it. You know, so many other characters could have done it, but they chose a Scarf.
It maybe wasn't the best choice to round out their team comp. You're right. Taka wouldn't have been able to deal with Koshka very easily, but he could have gone for Ringo all by himself.
Yeah, he could have deleted Ringo, definitely. So I mean, and that's what you got to think. You know, when you see the team picking and they go with the Koshka first and then Arden, You know they're going to go for Ringo. You know that, right? You got to know that. So then you need to then structure your draft picks in a way that counters it, and don't just be like, okay, we don't care about your draft pick. We're just going to do what we want to do because we think we can win. It's not how you're going to win these type of high level tournaments.
Yep. And here we go into the third game decider blind pick. Whoever wins this goes through to the quarterfinals of the Tesseract Qualifier series. The winner of this series will be qualifying to go to VIPL and representing the SEA region. So there's a lot on the line. Both of these teams definitely want to be getting into that exclusive last 8 spots at least.
And they might even get a selfie with yours truly autocorrect.
Oh, you're going to be going?
I live here.
Oh, I didn't know.
I live in
I've
Korea.
seen a few of your tweets saying that you'd hung around at a few of the games, but I knew you lived. I just didn't know whether you were attending any of the games.
Oh yeah, definitely VIPL. I mean, a lot of that. I try to make the ones that are quite important ones, but I try to get there as much as possible, because it's actually really close to where I live. It's only like a 20-minute train ride.
Lucky for some, eh? Well, luckily enough, the live finals for us is in our country this time for my region.
Ooh.
Well,
So
it
you
looks
get
like
selfie with Zenny as well then.
we do have some lock-ins. We have Vox Koshka Arden against Arden Fortress Blackfeather. These are some interesting team comps. There's no Ringo this time, which is surprising.
Yeah, I am at a loss for words right now because I have no idea what's going through their heads. This is by far one of the most confusing teams I've shoutcasted in this tournament. Koshka makes sense to me with Arden. Fox in a way makes sense, but considering how well that Ringo worked, in house, but they're gonna go with a weapon Fox. So okay, for me, if you're gonna go weapon the lane, better to go Ringo simply because he's got built-in attack speed. The problem with Vox is that he's got no built-in attack speed. You need attack speed items like Tornado Triggers, Blazing Salvo, etc. Whereas Ringo doesn't need that early game, so he can bully in the early game with just more front-loaded weapon power. And that's why I prefer Ringo in a lot of cases against Fox. So that's interesting. I think, seeing them go with this lane Black Feather, and then the Fortress to me is an obvious pick because Fortress is broken right now. So all he needs, and you are seeing him going to go Crystal. So you're going to see the broken Fortress come out. And with the Koshka falling off in the late game, the Fortress has a potential to absolutely just win team fights. And that's why Fortress is broken right now. With just I think Aftershock and a broken Myth, and it's GG for that team. And I faced it myself, so I can tell you it's devastating. But obviously anything can go.
It's not like you can't counter it. I mean, Koshka is probably better than Fortress right now. So I personally wouldn't say that. I've had games where I can easily shut down one of these Fortresses. It's a big risk because they have to be winning the early game. When the Wolves come out level 6, that's one of his biggest power spikes. So you've got to be careful around that. But it's not a complete end to the game if that's what they've picked. Koshka, definitely a good choice. I agree with you on the Ringo over Vox choice, though. I think Ringo would have been much better, especially considering how the last game went. Mings just seemed to like standing with his Tornado Trigger and pumping out a heck of a lot of damage all at once.
Well, let's see, because I mean, the only time I've seen Fortress lose this is when somebody has played Fortress poorly. When somebody has played Fortress well with this build against somebody who plays Koshka well, yes, the early game is a little bit of a problem, but if you've got a rotation, anytime they try to push in the jungle, you have a rotation from the laner. If it's a Ringo, usually it's a Ringo actually. I don't know about Blackfeather, but if it's a Ringo, then you get a fast rotation and you can counter the Koshka early game. Then she doesn't get her build that quick, falls off late game, and Wolves come out. But let's see. Let's see how it goes.
Yep, I think Blackfeather's definitely got the stronger presence in the lane right now. Ringo would have been better, obviously, to force him out, but here comes Koshka with a little bit of gank, but the barrier manages to keep Port coming in there for a very, very long time. Faker getting pushed back, but Rubber the Monkey is very, very low health, and so is the rest of Mega Empire. The first kill onto Arden, and there is the power of Koshka coming out early game.
Well, I think also you saw lack of focus. They didn't know they were attacking two different targets in the last team fight. Rubber Monkey was going in on the Vox, and then Blackfeather and Arden were going in on the Koshka. So I think that's one of the things they need to be careful of. They need to have a single target mind and focus on these team fights.
Yeah, there could have been a lot more kills there for sure. There was a lot of the Mega Empire members very low as well. Blackfeathers managed to stay in the lane, sustaining with his Book of Eulogies, just checking the bush with his B ability to make sure there's no one hiding in there so they can keep farming safely. But that wasn't too devastating for anyone. There's still a lot of farming going on. Koshka definitely showing her early aggression there with a really good gank. But one kill off the back of it and not forcing Blackfeather out of lane, I don't think that was the best result for them.
Yeah, and goal difference is identical. They haven't invaded the jungle at all, apart from that little gank. So, again, it's not a good start for Koshka. Typically, level 2, you want to be pushing that jungle. They didn't put any pressure. Now it's allowed them to get farm. It's allowed them to put vision in their side. So, we'll see how this goes. But right now, it's pretty even.
Definitely. I think it's going to be a rush to the aftershock between Koshka and Fortress. So I wouldn't expect to see many items in the meantime. Koshka has gone for a little bit of an Oak Heart and some Light Shield, and Fortress has an Oak Heart of his own, but both of them are going to be prioritizing that aftershock over anything else. Meanwhile, Blackfeather's going for the sustain build again. Sorry about that.
Yeah. No, I was just saying it's interesting looking at the Artivos building up the Light Shield first. You can still build out to the fountain, but it's interesting how he built out the Light Shield first as part of that instead of the Oak Heart first. So I guess he was really wary against that Koshka after that first engagement.
Yeah, I'd say he definitely needs a little bit of defense. Doesn't want to be handing over free kills, but it means his Vanguard isn't going to be doing an awful lot early game. The more the mobility of it he's going to be useful for.
Yeah, Mings is also building out quite a bit now. He's got that heavy steel and that attack speed. Again, that blazing salvo. So, and he's got the crit. So, be a little bit careful there.
Mings is an absolute menace with his weapon power builds. There's just zero of anything. It's just red everywhere. That's all he got. All he buys.
Yeah.
But it looks like Pork Bun has hit level 6 first. Koshka coming in level 6 as well, so she does have Yummy Cannon Frenzy. Pushes Blackfeather out and then rotates immediately down into the jungle to try and force a fight with 2-on-2. But all the members of Mega Empire, well, Arden has roamed up to the lane while Rubber Monkey finishes off the back camps. He'll be joining them very, very soon, and the lane is pushed up into Pork Bun. So it's just a case of sitting and waiting right now. I think both the laners seem to think that if they just sit back and farm, they're going to be able to win later on.
And Rubber Monkey is the first one to win that fight towards Aftershock, as he would have, because the gold being spread a bit too thin for Faker. Faker is still a ways away from the Aftershock, so this is when I think they need to start looking to push here from Empire.
Well, Faker's prioritized those tier 2 boots, so that's where his gold's gone.
Look at the damage on Mings. Oh, wow. And that's that Aftershock coming in. You see that initiation from Rubber Monkey. This is not good. They want to go in a 3v2, but there come the Wolves. It's a little bit too late on that Wolves hit. They want to hit that earlier. As soon as they saw Koshka, that Wolves should have gone out. We've seen a lot of turret hitting on Rubber Monkey. He needs to be a bit careful here.
Yep, they've given up a lot of health for the attempted dives there. Both Artivos and Rubber Monkey are very, very low. Faker jumping in again onto Pork Bun. He's just not going to let this go, trying to force him out of the lane, but the sustain and defense from Pork Bun is just too much for him. Here comes the Yummy Cannon Frenzy as well, locking him down.
He's going to get it, and he uses ult to escape in a pot, and he uses his boots. What an escape from Pork Bun, showing Faker, telling Faker, sit, I got this. Sit. Get out of my house. This is my house. You in it, get out of it.
Faker kept coming back again and again and again, trying to chip away, but Pork Bun was just having none of it.
And Ming's just barely missing out on that. Had he just a split second earlier with that wait for it, Ming's or Pork Bun would have died for sure. So just a little bit of luck from Pork Bun.
Definitely, and Pork Bun is now aggressing onto Mings again. Mings' lack of defense is really starting to show. I think they've definitely countered Mings' playstyle much better in this blind pick. Pork Bun can dive the back line, doesn't have to worry about Koshka as much, so long as either if Koshka jumps past him to try and get to Fortress, or if they deal with Koshka first, it means that Pork Bun can then easily dive onto Mings whenever he wants with all the gap closers.
This is I rather like this build from Pork Bun because he's you can see how tanky he is. He Koshka diving in on him again and again, and he's still sustaining, and then he's healing up with that with the Book of Eulogies that he had before, which is now gone, but it's part of the Serpent's Mask. So he's going to still get some of that, but he's just a really ripe target, but it's like so deceiving because he's overextending and they're coming in on him, but then he's backing off and he's still surviving with nearly full health.
Well, I'm just a little bit concerned. Mings has gone for that breaking point first.
1.13, living in the past, bro.
Yeah, there's no crit, there's the minions fit, but there's no actual damage behind that breaking point. He has no defense, a breaking point with some very low tier red items behind it, but
And
I still would have
keep in
preferred to see
mind
the Power Blade.
too that in 1.14 they've nerfed the attack speed 5% on that breaking point. So it used to be 40%, now it's 35%. So he's getting even less. So it's going to be even harder for him to build stacks. On top of the fact that he needs to meet that 125 weapon damage requirement before he can start building the stacks, which he doesn't have, I don't think.
Yeah, he's getting poked out the lane so easily by Blackfeather, so he's having a little bit of trouble farming, and as soon as a team fight breaks out, those wolves are just going to be sticking onto him, and the attack speed will help in dealing with the wolves, but he's not going to be putting out enough damage to force them back.
Yeah, and he's going to be melting in the meantime because he's got no defense. And there's a Shiver Steel from Pork Bun, so you've got wolves and a Shiver Steel and a Gauntlet. This is going to get ugly really quick, really fast.
Yep, I do like Pork Bun's lane strategy though. He's been so dominant in games 1 and 3 with that lane Blackfeather. Just sustain and damage.
Fight! Wait, Pork comes across gauntlets from everybody. Yummy Cat and Frenzy, they're just burning all the ultimates. Wolves have gone out. Deleting Mings, as we talked about, Koshka in trouble, so they're splitting targets really well, and they're going to get that ace right now. And the Wolves, again, left alone to their devices, will do that.
Yeah, they just no target on the Wolves, no attempt to peel away from that. There was both gauntlets, they could have easily crossed the line and dealt with the Wolves first before continuing the fight, but instead, you just allow Pork Bun to dive onto the backline of Mings. Fabian and Faker didn't manage to kill anyone in the meantime.
Yeah.
And like I said, Pork Bun is just dealing with Mings so easily.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the reasons Vox can get away is because he's got the Shiver Steel, but he could have used his A Steel to zoom out, but he didn't. He just tried to walk away. I don't really know what he was doing. I mean, he didn't use any of his A skill to get out. He didn't, Arden didn't Vanguard him away. They were too focused in on, saving Koshka, and Koshka was just way too deep in that fight,
Yep, with Empire having an earlier game hero on their team as well this time, I would put them in the driving seat right now. They're definitely managing to fend off most of the offensive movements of the Koshka. She has been stealing a bit of farm, but here comes the attack for the pack again. Faker seems to be the one
Koshka. Oh, the damage on Koshka. Now they're focusing on Mings.
And Pork Bun is in the backline, so can't quite get to Mings, but Rubber the Monkey puts out so much damage with that Crystal Fortress build, and the Wolves are still out, and that was the slow preventing anyone from escaping.
Yeah. And I really like the buy also on the Alice Pauldron from Pork Buns. He hits at Alice Pauldron every time he dives in because he has to, because he's a Blackfeather, but he's so tanky. I like the split duties between the Arden, whose role is to save his teammates, and between Pork Bun, whose role is to enable the damage by using the slows, using the Shiver Steel. And that's a really nice gauntlet to catch the Koshka who's overextended. Look at the turrets not aggroing in on them. We've seen the turret buff like this before. It's not aggroing at all on them. Mins drops.
Wow, Pork Bun is just taking so many. He was taking so many turret hits at the first dive. He's just so tanky and has so much sustain that he's living through all of it. Looks like Rubber the Monkey is going to go down to this Koshka, but here comes the Yummy Cannon Frenzy, locked down, but Blackfeather is on top of her. Faker is trying to get back to the base, but Pork Bun he's now aggressing onto Pork Bun with the help of the turret.
Yeah, and you can see basically there a lot of problems with Koshka's overextending, but coming back in the end to pick up the kill. Interesting to see that still no aftershock on that Koshka.
Yeah, definitely prioritize the fighting first. I think it's not the right choice because if they're sustaining in a fight against Pork Bun, there's just going to be Heartthrob stacks on everybody, and he can just ping pong around with his A ability, executing everybody.
Yeah, and you're not going to get that quick proc to take out Rubber Monkey either.
Yep, I think things are not looking good for the side of Insane Potential right now. Their early game hasn't given them enough. They don't have the late game Crystal Deletion Box, same as last time, like I was saying, but we'll have to see if they can have a comeback here. Porkbun does have a breaking point now, so has invested more into damage rather than defense this time. So he's becoming an even bigger menace. And in most fights, you just look at Porkbun and his health is always above 3/4. They're not having to waste any of the utility items on him. He can just hold his own. I think he is definitely the MVP so far.
Yeah, and also this is the right time to get that breaking point, whereas Ming's got it the wrong time. He needs to get a Sorrow Blade first and then get the breaking point. But you're seeing Pork Buns get that breaking point after all this tankiness. And that's a smart play because he is able to stay in the fight a long time.
Yep, he is getting so much farm as well. He's not scared to just be up there in the lane alone because he has the Rose offensive as an escape utility item, a utility move as well as the barrier he can gain off of his B ability. He's just so tanky and so much sustain that he can go wherever he wants. He can initiate fights when he wants, and he has two of the best backups to come into the fights to join him as well.
Yeah, you can see Koshka picking up double shield even more. It does have Aftershock now, so we'll get that proc. But is it too little too late? There goes the Sorrow Blade from Mings finally. Now it's building out some of that crit, but building out that Tyrant's Monocle at this stage in the game is going to be too little too late, I think.
Yeah, both the laners do have a weapon infusion sitting in their inventory waiting. Arden is also looking like he's building an Aftershock, so they're going for a single target damage deletion between Arden and Fortress with the double Aftershock proc.
And that to me is a bit not of a good buy. I think they can probably get away with it because they're really, over right now. They're really pushing and doing well in the team fights. But anything would have been better than Aftershock now for Arden and Alice Pauldron to slow down the Vox when you go in on him. A Crucible to block Vox's wait for it ultimate, which is actually a little bit tough because of the pre-silence, but anything would have been better than Aftershock for Arden, I think.
It's not the worst pickup. He does need to be able to help his teammates a little bit more, but with Porkbun being so tanky, Arden can afford to go a little bit more into the damage side of things. So it's not a hybrid build, but it's more hybrid between defense and offense rather than crystal and weapon.
But I think if he's going to pick up something, better to pick up Tension Bow or a Bone Saw. Because at least with a Tension Bow, he's got a proc on that punch. Here comes Koshka overextending.
And there comes both goblins coming down. The wolves are out. Rubber the Monkey is doing a lot of damage on Faker. Porkbun, meanwhile, does the backline and dealt with Ming so easily. They're probably going to dive this turret for Fabian as well to finish off the ace. And with Kraken coming down, it looks like this could be game.
Oh, did you see Rubber Monkey with that one leap took 25% of his health and killed Arden? Because he got that proc with the broken stacks up. This is ridiculous.
Oh, so sore. Wow. And they're leaving that one turret with one hit away. There we go. Both turrets down, and it looks like this is definitely going to be game. They've got the Crystal down to half health. Here comes the Kraken onto the screen. Rubber the Monkey, half health. SK Faker is dealing with him. But meanwhile, Porkbun is just wailing on this Crystal. And this is game.
I won't say I told you so, but I told you so. This is exactly the reason why Fortress is broken. You can have your entire team go defensive, and the only real damage coming from your Fortress with the wolves coming out and the Aftershock of the Broken Myth, and you can win. Because you can just see them. You can see them just get deleted. Koshka made a bad decision in that first part to dive in with her Young Catnip Frenzy, putting herself in the middle of 3 enemies. So that wasn't good, but Porkman completely bypassed her and said, okay, forget you. I'm going to go straight for Ming because he could take him one-on-one. And you could saw even Koshka just melted in the face of the Wolves, Fortress, and Arden.
Yeah, there definitely was a little bit of poor targeting on the side of Insane Potential. They needed to be able to deal with those Wolves, or at least kill Fortress very, very early on. They knew Blackfeather was too tanky, too much sustain to be able to burst down immediately, especially without Koshka having her Aftershock until much later in the game. She does have 3 shield items as well, with the Fountain, the Kinetic Shield, and the Light Shield, so she definitely feared the Fortress the most.
I mean, two things that they didn't do that they could have done, which was, 1, leverage the early game with the Koshka a bit better. 2, rotate up and try to do more ganks, or at least push back Blackfeather on the lane, Porcupine getting free farm all the time. 146 CS. Not too far away from 130 from Mings, but his buys and where he's putting his gold was a lot smarter compared to Mings, who had no defense whatsoever. Didn't even get the Tyrant's Monocle, so he wasn't even doing any massive amount of crit damage. Poor decision to go with the breaking point first. You're not going to have that ability to sustain in team fights to build stacks. You might get like 2 stacks before you get deleted out, if that.
Yep.
Because you've got no defense, and that's where you see the breaking point used very smartly on the support bun side, because he's got that defense. If he doesn't have attack speed, if you don't have attack speed, in addition to the breaking point, then make it up by being very tanky, because then you can just sit in the battle, soak up damage, and get your stacks that way, rather than try to get more attack speed, a tornado trigger or something. So that's 2 ways to kind of play with the breaking point. Minx didn't do either of those.
Definitely some mistakes made in that game. I think maybe just the pressure of going to a third game could have got to them, but they did incredibly well in the prior one, getting them to the third game. They were a lower seed, so congratulations to Mega Empire going through to the quarterfinals. And we will be back after a short break with the third game of the day. That will be with Shingy and autocorrect again. We'll just take a couple of minutes break and be back with that very, very soon.